1 million. Let that number really sink in for a second. That is the staggering volume of job cuts announced by U.S. employers in 2025 alone. And out of that massive wave, roughly 55,000 were explicitly directly linked to artificial intelligence. We're not just talking about minor shifts in administrative roles here. We are looking at a fundamental, structural transformation led by tech firms. It's completely altering customer support, content moderation, middle management, you name it. The scale is just massive, and it's forcing us to confront a completely new economic reality.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to put on my economist hat today because we're going to unpack a truly fascinating, honestly somewhat alarming phenomenon. We call it the AI layoff trap. We're going to dive into exactly why a choice that makes perfect, rational sense for a single company right now might actually be a recipe for collective macroeconomic disaster.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the AI layoff trap. Second, the demand externality. Third, a massive deadweight loss. Fourth, why companies cannot stop. And finally, number 5, the Pigouvian tax solution.
Okay, Section 1, the AI layoff trap. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't some abstract, futuristic model we're dealing with. It's happening right now. Back in February of 2026, Block actually cut nearly half of its 10,000-person workforce. And CEO Jack Dorsey didn't mince words about it either. He stated point blank that AI had made those roles unnecessary. But critically, he predicted that within the next year, the majority of companies will reach the exact same conclusion. When business leaders are being that transparent, we really need to listen. And this is exactly where the paradox kicks in. You kind of have to look at this through two totally different lenses. From a microeconomic view, so think the perspective of a single CEO or board of directors, replacing labor with AI is a total no-brainer, right? You significantly cut your per-task costs. But if you zoom out and flip to the macroeconomic view, the picture gets pretty dark. When a firm displaces workers without those folks being reabsorbed into the economy somewhere else, those workers lose their income. And, well, what are workers? They're consumers. So a firm is essentially destroying its own consumer base just in the pursuit of short-term efficiency. Which brings us to Section 2, the demand externality. This whole thing hinges on a phenomenon economists call the demand externality. Imagine for a second you run a company. When you decide to replace a worker with an AI agent, you get to capture 100% of the cost savings from that decision. It looks fantastic on your quarterly earnings report. However, that displaced worker now stops spending money. And they don't just stop buying your products, they stop buying from everyone. So you get all the financial upside, but you share the resulting loss of aggregate consumer demand with all of your competitors. So it basically boils down to this. Your paycheck is someone else's revenue. We operate in a highly interconnected system. If we systematically eliminate wages across the board without replacing them, we are literally systematically eliminating revenue. If the broader economy cannot reabsorb these displaced workers quickly enough, the purchasing power that all these mass market firms rely on to survive, it just evaporates.
Let's move to Section 3, a massive deadweight loss.
Now, you might be thinking, oh, this is just a classic story of wealth transfer. Greedy firm owners taking the pie from hardworking employees. But actually, no. It creates what we call a deadweight loss. This is a net loss in total economic surplus. The economic pie isn't just being sliced differently here. The pie itself is actively shrinking. Workers are harmed through lost wages, absolutely. But firm owners, they're harmed too because the collective erosion of consumer demand eventually drags their profits down way below what they would have been if no one had automated excessively in the first place. Basically, everybody loses. When we model this failure out visually, what really jumps out is that dark shading moving toward the top right. That represents the growing over-automation wedge, which is just a fancy way of saying the gap between what firms are doing privately and what is actually optimal for the whole economy. Notice how on the horizontal axis, as the number of competing firms goes up, the shading gets darker. This beautifully, or honestly terrifyingly, illustrates that more competition actually makes the problem worse. In a highly fragmented market, each firm's share of the demand loss is so diluted that they just keep automating, driving the entire market deeper and deeper into deadweight loss.
Section 4, why companies cannot stop.
So if we can all see the cliff, why on earth do companies keep driving toward it? It all comes down to a classic prisoner's dilemma. For any individual firm, automating is a strictly dominant strategy. If you decide to hold back just to protect aggregate demand, your rivals are just going to automate anyway. You'll suffer the demand loss and you'll lose your competitive cost advantage, bleeding market share in the process.
Even though collective restraint would literally raise profits for everyone across the board, defecting and automating remains the individually rational choice. They are completely trapped by their own rational incentives.
Naturally, when people realize the market can't fix itself, they immediately start throwing out policy ideas. But treating the symptoms doesn't cure the disease. Take universal basic income. It raises the demand floor, sure, but it leaves the per-task incentive to replace a worker with AI exactly the same. Capital income taxes. They just change overall profit levels. They don't alter the marginal cost of automating a task at all. What about giving workers equity? Well, that narrows the wedge slightly, but it doesn't solve the cross-firm leakage. A worker's equity in Company A does absolutely nothing for Company B's lost demand. And Cozian bargaining, like getting firms to voluntarily agree to limit AI, it fails because, as we just saw with the prisoner's dilemma, these agreements aren't self-enforcing. The incentive to cheat is just way too high.
Which takes us to our final stop, Section 5, the Pigouvian tax solution.
The actual cure here lies in a Pigouvian tax. Named after the economist Arthur Pigou, this is a per-unit charge set exactly equal to the marginal external cost of an action. In this specific context, it means taxing the firm for the exact amount of aggregate demand destruction they are pushing onto the rest of the economy every time they automate a task. By doing this, you literally force the company to internalize the true macroeconomic cost of laying off that worker. You align their private incentive with the social reality. Let's walk through how this builds into a comprehensive economic cure. Step 1. You implement that Pigouvian tax on the uninternalized demand loss per automated task. Step 2. You don't just sit on that revenue, you actively use it to fund robust, high-quality retraining programs. Step 3. This raises the income replacement rate, which gets displaced workers back into high-paying jobs much faster. And Step 4, honestly, this is the genius part of it. As workers are reabsorbed and demand stabilizes, the externality shrinks. The tax is self-limiting. It actually funds the very mechanism that makes the tax unnecessary over time.
And you can see that dynamic play out perfectly right here. As the income replacement rate climbs, moving up the vertical axis there, fueled by those tax-funded retraining programs, the dark shading dissipates. The over-automation distortion shrinks. Proactive policy like this doesn't just punish firms, it structurally fixes the demand gap, reabsorbing those workers and fundamentally curing the market. So we arrive at our final thought. The economics of this are incredibly clear. The incentives are laid bare for all of us to see. We know exactly where the AI automation cliff is, and we know that perfectly rational, competitive firms cannot stop themselves from accelerating right toward it. So the only real question left is, will we actually change the rules of the game before we drive off it? I hope this explainer helped clarify the incredible macroeconomic forces at play here. Keep questioning the consensus, keep looking at the data, and keep learning.